Introduce, I guess, the panel. Are we ready? Melanie Mentenko, welcome. It's from Habitat Humanity. We have Caitlin Grace from Laney's Carpentry program. Che Williams, who is a electrician locally, right? On the peninsula, that's local enough. Alexandria Shade from Grid Alternatives, welcome. And our moderator, Carrie Diller from Inspired ADUs. I almost said Grid Alternatives, so I knew that wasn't the case. But Katie's gonna lead the festivities here, so I'm gonna hand over to you, her to you, or she's got her own mic, so. Okay, and I'll hand this down to, who's next?
All right, thanks everybody for joining us. Tonight we're going to try to kind of weave the conversation about inclusion and diversity and empowerment kind of through women in construction and in the trades, and then also through tiny houses and ADUs. So what I'd love to do is just hear from everybody kind of what they're doing and how they got into it to kick us off. So I'll just start. I own an architecture firm in West Oakland. We have a division that specializes in doing accessory dwelling units, which the state named ADUs, which maybe they could have thought through a little bit, but anyways, there we are. So we don't do as many tiny houses. We are focused more on making inclusionary housing. So all of our cottages are accessible. We're really focused on making sure that they are for aging in place or someone with a temporary or permanent disability. So that's really where my passion lies about it.
Hello? Oh, okay, yeah, this works. Cool. So my name is Alexandra Shade. I work for Grid Alternatives, which is based in Oakland. It's a nonprofit solar company. And we do a lot of different things. What we're most known for doing is solar installs. All of the services we offer are free for our clients. We mostly work with income qualifying clients. That's what we mostly do. We also do rebate programs if you are interested in trading in your older car for an electric vehicle or hybrid car or e-bike. And so we have different types of programs. My department that I work in is workforce development. So what I do in my job is mostly job training for solar, running that program, and then employment connections and employment opportunities. And my background is in STEM and teaching, which is how I kind of ended up in workforce development, and renewable energy, which is how I ended up in solar. But I'm excited to be here and learn more and offer my opinions. If you want to learn more about our services, connect with me after. I know a little bit about a lot of things, but only a lot about my department, so I will find you the right people if you have more questions.
Hi, I'm Che Williams. I've been in the trades for about 6 years now. I've been an electrician for 4 years now. Before I became an electrician, I did more carpentry work, and all of my work is residential custom homes. I currently work on the peninsula. I kind of wrote more notes, if you guys don't mind me reading my notes. I'm really proud of what I do. It's what I always wanted to do since I was a kid. It's been a tough road, but I've learned so much. I'm almost always the only woman on the job site, and I really want to encourage more women to get involved. It's not easy. It's a physical job, crawling under houses and into attics sometimes, but there's nothing more satisfying than stepping back and being proud of what you've built. As an electrician, after months of work, when we finally hook up the service wires and flip the breakers on, there's no better feeling than flipping the light switches for the first time and seeing all the pretty lights I installed. And I just feel like we need way more women in the trades.
Hello, everyone. My name's Caitlin Grace. I'm a student here at Laney. I have been here for, oh gosh, I'm going into my 3rd semester now. And I'm a real estate agent. I've been in real estate for about 10 years, but I'm a newer agent. And I think I subconsciously got into the industry because I grew up around builders. My stepdad was a self-proclaimed carpenter, and he built a houseboat, and I saw a lot of that, but I was always on the outside. I always tried to learn and pick people's brains, and I wasn't ever really brought into that, so I just went real estate, and now all this time later in my 30s, here I am going back to school and actually finally learning the thing that I really want to do. So I'm happy to be here, and I'll pass it on. Here you go.
Hi everyone, my name is Melanie Mentenko. I'm a project manager for Habitat for Humanity. My background, I have a degree in civil engineering, and after I graduated from college, I did that for a couple of years and realized that I was drawing a lot of lines on paper but not really making anything happen. So my dad was a carpenter, so I kind of saw that growing up too. So I moved over into the construction side because it's really satisfying at the end of the day to be able to look over what you've done and see something physical that you've created. There's a lot of energy in that. So Habitat for Humanity, you may have heard of us. We are a nonprofit that builds affordable homes. There's a bunch of other things that we do as well. I work in the new construction department, so I do ground up construction as well as renovations. And my department does everything from acquiring properties through entitlements, through construction, and even doing warranty work on the back end. But Habitat has a lot of other things that we offer too. We do a lot of home repairs, which is something we offer to homeowners who maybe can't afford repairs in their homes and they're not safe. And that's a way that we're keeping people in their homes and keeping those affordable housing in the system, and letting people age gracefully in their own homes. We also have Restore. If you've never heard about our Restores, they're really exciting. It's a great place to find deals if you are looking for some materials that you need for your own work at home. Did I miss anything?
I love the Restore.
I love the Restore too. I didn't even know about it before I came to Habitat, but yeah, so that's what I do.
Okay, thank you all so much. So we're going to go through a little bit of a conversation, and I want to start focused on women in the trades. And one thing we want to do here, both at like ideas for what we could do at Laney to make the program more enticing, but I want to zoom out for a minute and look at the trades in general and kind of how could we make them more approachable and inviting. And I know Shay has been an electrician on one of my projects, and it is not, I run probably, our office has, probably 75 projects going at a time, and I would say I have 2 job sites with women on them. So if you look at those numbers, it's pretty, it's still pretty disappointing that women aren't more of a regular occurrence in the trades. And so I thought, Shay, if you could start us off with this, that we could talk a little bit about just to be real to what some of the challenges that you've seen in the field and also opportunities that you think there are.
Thank you. Sorry. Oh, I got it. Thank you. Shoot it. I think one of the main challenges I've faced is dealing with having to, and I speak for myself, but I feel like these are common things that women have to face. Kind of having to prove myself on the job site much more than a man would have to. There's lots of instances where I'm more experienced in what I'm doing than the man I'm working with, or I'm actually teaching a man. But others around us will always assume it's my very first day in construction, my very first day on the job site, despite how I'm dressed or how I speak or the work I do. So that can be pretty common. Another challenge is having to deal with sexual harassment. I think that's pretty common. imposter syndrome, especially if you're going to apply for a job to begin with, or when it comes to, in my personal experience, pretty much each company I've gone to work for, they ask me what is my desired salary, and I almost always kind of lowball myself and kind of doubt myself when it comes to talking about my experience, and I just downplay my work experience in general. And I feel like as women, we tend to be much more hesitant to go for a job position that we are actually qualified for as opposed to men. In my personal experience, I seem to work with lots of men who view me almost as competition, despite many of them having years of experience over me, as opposed to just working side by side with me or teaching me or learning from me. It happens. Lots of men kind of don't want to see you there. But at the same time, I've dealt with many men who are eager to teach, and they want to see me there, you know. Getting hired to begin with. So in my personal experience, I've had many companies look at my resume, they're very excited, but then it comes time for us to get past emails or text messages, and we have to have a phone call, and then they're very shocked that I'm a woman, and they're very hesitant to hire me. Also, same thing with in-person meetings for an interview. Things are sometimes kind of like we're not living in the year we're living in the sense that it's like, I guess for example, like sometimes guys size me up and assume I can't lift as much because of my size, or I can't just do my job in general because I'm a woman, despite the fact that they've seen my resume. I guess those are really all the challenges I'll talk about.
Great. And then Alexandra, what are you seeing in the workforce as you're starting to train with more diversity in your workforce program? What are you seeing as some of the more positive and exciting things about, women and other, more inclusionary people in the trades?
Yeah, so I work in workforce development. Actually funny because I sometimes forget my background is actually in engineering as well. And that was another place where there are just not that many women. And so one thing that's really helpful is like events like these, targeted programming to specifically invite women to do programs or do things in the trades. Because a lot of times employers will say, oh, look, we just don't have women applying, or they like women just must not just be interested. And it's not that they're not interested, it's that you have to do the work to like increase, and that's across kind of any sort of spectrum of diversity. Like if you're not doing the work to do like targeted programming and find people that are going to make your company more diverse, then you're probably not going to find them, especially because like Chase said, a lot of times women are more likely to underestimate themselves. Like a qualified candidate who's a woman versus a man is less likely to apply even if they have all the same experience. So just like as a woman in STEM or in the industry or in a trade, just like being more confident in your skills and going for it, being more willing to put yourself out there and try new things, because in theory there's no reason why you shouldn't be able to do anything that a man can do, essentially. And a lot of times women on job sites are like working twice as hard. They're usually really good employees because they do feel like they have to prove themselves compared to men, because a lot of times people will doubt their abilities. So they end up usually being some of the hardest workers.
I would agree. Yes, Raya. Raya, sorry.
But we're wearing masks, so things are normally anyway. But if you guys could hold the mic like in front of your mouth, like that, you should demonstrate.
Yeah, there you go, just like that.
You can hear it a lot better, yeah.
Well, Caitlin, show us how you can use the mic and tell us a little bit about what do you think we could do, particularly with the program here at Laney Carpentry, to make it more approachable and inviting to women?
Well, okay, so it's funny. I hear what you guys are saying, and I here at Laney have not experienced any of those kinds of hardships. This school for me, in my experience, has actually been extremely welcoming, inclusive, and this has been my introduction to the industry. So I'm blessed. I'm grateful. You know, I haven't had to deal with sexual harassment or people assuming that I can't do what I'm here to do. And we're all learning together. So there's this kind of equality thing going on. So I'm a big fan here. Now, in the real world, right, there's still hardship. It's still a man's world. And I think the best thing we can do is just not let it stop us. Go to school, learn these things, get out there, and it will increase the women plus in these industries. So what do I think we can do is just keep going, you know, share it on social media. Tell people that we have free school this semester because maybe there's women out there who've always wanted to do this and just haven't. And I was one of those people, you know, but now I'm here and I'm not alone. And I'm looking forward to the industry and hopefully it's kind to me.
Okay, and we were expecting a planner from Oakland who's not here tonight, so I didn't study up on all my definitions, but I always want to go back to one thing that Shay was talking about, is why she does it is because she's passionate about it and she loves it. That's why I do my work as an architect, and that's why I only focus on these backyard cottages these days. And so I want to kind of transition over to tiny homes and backyard cottages in terms of kind of looking at them in the same way that they're a new type of housing. They're giving a lot more people access to housing. Just for a few definitions, tiny homes are typically on wheels and movable. And accessory dwelling units, everyone in California, this is cool, has the right to build an 800 square foot ADU, 4 feet from the property line, 16 feet tall, and you don't have to go to notify your neighbors, you don't have to go to the planning commission, you don't have to do your floor area ratio or your lot coverage. It's a by right. California has recognized that the state is running out of housing and we have to get creative with our solutions. I think tiny homes are also a way to get more people, again, access to housing. So one of the questions we wanted to talk about tonight are kind of what are rules and regulations and even programs that are out there that are helping to add tiny houses and ADUs, and what are some of the things that we're seeing prevent those? And so maybe I'll send that down to Melanie and say, are you guys at Habitat doing anything in particular with tiny homes or ADUs?
Habitat's core program is ownership, home ownership. But we did actually, in the last couple of years, have the opportunity to build some tiny homes for the city of San Jose. We had 4 different project sites down there. So we got the opportunity to learn how to, first of all, build a tiny home. And second of all, work through some of the things that are a little different when it comes to building a tiny home as opposed to your standard single family home. You know, I think one of the bigger challenges is because it's a newer concept or a new idea, there isn't really zoning in place that is friendly to the idea of building tiny homes. So it does take some sort of interesting, you know, flexibility on the part of, you know, the city or the county where you're working. Sorry, I lost it. So yeah, we had the opportunity to do that, and it was really great. You know, and it's just the tiny homes we were building were transitional housing for homeless people, and the whole point of that is to get people somewhere where they have a safe place to stay so they can move towards finding that permanent home. So it was really exciting for us to get the opportunity to do that.
Hi, guys. Some things to add to provide some perspective about what housing is like in the Bay Area. So I work for Berkshire Hathaway in Alameda, and in the next 8 years, we need to build 3,353 homes in the next 8 years. The residents are up in arms. They're like, oh my gosh, what's gonna happen? Perspective, Oakland needs to build 26,000 new homes in the next 8 years. So how are we doing that, right? ADUs became a legal thing in California just in January 2020. People were doing them, but now it's kind of more legit. We can utilize them better. And this housing issue that we definitely know that we have, we're doing a lot of things to try and fix it, but I think ADUs and small homes are going to be a great contributor. They're trying to rezone some commercial buildings where they could put properties up there that are residential, and they're really trying to rework it because we have to make sure our residents have homes. The unhoused population, we should be able to fix this. That's just my personal opinion. I have some bills and information about actual laws. If you want to hear about it later, let me know. But they're, boring jargon like Assembly Bill 881. So definitely let me know if you want some information about that.
I do think there is some really neat creativity that's needed around zoning and planning. So the great thing is with backyard cottages is that everyone can add them and they don't really change the character of your neighborhood. You're not necessarily going to have a mid-rise go up or like a 7-story apartment building go up on the edge, and people are always worried about change and changing the character of their neighborhood. Also, from a sustainable point of view, these tiny homes, backyard cottages are a really great way where we're getting more density in an existing infrastructure. So on a single family lot, you already have the fire department, the police, the schools, and so it's a very sustainable way for our communities to grow moving forward.
And it increases your property value, so consider that. And it brings in a income if you're renting it out.
Also, there's a pretty neat thing when you're building new construction. You have the opportunity to make things age-in-place friendly or accessible for someone to a wheelchair. A lot of our homes in the Bay Area, you're going up 6 stairs to get in. They're not going to be something that you can stay in forever. Eventually, you're going to run into someone in your family will run into a physical barrier to stay in place. And for most of us here, the majority of our equity is in our home. So to be able to leverage that and build this extra either tiny home or backyard cottage, and actually with the accessory dwelling units, you can convert part of your main house to a junior ADU and build a freestanding detached backyard cottage. So you can turn every single family home into 3 units should you need to. So something interesting to think about there. So ladies, when we think about how we can elevate, get more people to think about joining the trades and also think about adding tiny homes or ADUs, like what are ways that you all think we can encourage people to, think about women in construction differently, or how could we also think about housing in a different way?
Well, I definitely let all of my clients know about how valuable ADUs are for them, their properties, and their income. I think just getting the word out there, educating ourselves, and sharing the news. Social media is a blessing. The school is great, and I just think we need to be vocal about the things that we're learning. These are new for the Bay Area. So I just say, shout it.
I do. I have a great way to get your feet wet if you're interested in doing construction is come volunteer for Habitat. The Habitat that I work for, the affiliate I work for is the East Bay Silicon Valley affiliate. Our president and CEO is a woman. We have tons of women on our staff. Our crew leaders, a bunch of them are women. And the great thing about coming to volunteer with us is that it's absolutely no pressure. We generally have a number of different tasks that can be done each volunteer day, and you're welcome to pick whatever task you're comfortable doing. Everyone's there to teach everybody. We're all learning together. It's really a great way to go try it without any pressure.
I believe hosting events like this and featuring women on the advertisements for courses and programs like the one at Laney make a huge difference. And things like in things like this, representation are more important than some realize. Also, I feel like a big way to make a difference and make it more approachable is by being a trailblazer, because if women see other women working in the trades, they can realize that it's a viable and achievable career path. And yeah, that's it.
Alexandra, anything more on that topic?
No, I think they said all of the things I was going to say.
Great. I also think something to think about in the Bay Area is, this kind of gets into some of the zoning and creative thinking you were talking about, Melanie, but, one of the big barriers for people to have housing is to have access to land. And so I think there's some interesting ways we can start to think about more communal living. I know I have a lot of girlfriends who, are planning to kind of pool resources and live together and figure out how to take care of one another as we age. And so by adding these, kind of imagining a tiny house village, or imagining how you could transform your house if you're not using the majority of it to get additional housing for other people. I mean, I think there's some really neat, I think probably with what you're doing at Grid Alternatives, where you're going into communities and subsidizing and training, we could also begin to layer in, adding the tiny house or the ADU with, the team is already coming together. We're going to get Habitat to put the ADU in, and then you can put the solar panels on top, and then we'll get Shay to wire the whole thing, and then Caitlin can sell it. So it's all just come together. But I think, thinking about the programs you all are doing at Grid Alternatives are really interesting. I mean, you're focused on the solar, but then I think it could be really interesting to think about how we then begin to see that trickle down into other ideas of how we can continue kind of the model that you're doing and apply it to other housing. So any thoughts on any of that?
Yeah, so I think a big part of tiny home culture has become having solar as part of it, which is pretty cool. And I think one of the main draws to that is that a lot of tiny homes are mobile. A lot of them are on wheels. And so if you're going to have a place that moves and you want to have consistent electricity, you need a source for that, right? And also solar is very sustainable. Your electricity bill is a lot lower. So I think as the tiny house movement grows, solar is also going to grow. I mean, it's one of the largest growing industries in California anyway, even just with normal residences. So I think part of the tiny home culture is sustainability, which is pretty cool compared to most residential systems. So I think it also opens the doors for a lot of maintenance and more trades and building of tiny homes. That's a whole new industry that's coming up, and a new skill set that people need to be trained in. And so I think it's just opening a lot of doors and kind of trying to get the different skills from different industries and connecting them. I know we already do some work with Habitat for Humanity, so I think we'll continue to work with them as they continue to build more tiny homes. So I'm excited to see us do work with more tiny homes on our side as well.
So you can have tiny homes, though, with a foundation, and if you do, Freddie Mac, Fannie Mae, there we go, I just mixed up their last names. They will fund it if it's 500 square feet or over. Multi-generational families housing is becoming much more popular. We're seeing a lot of multi-generational housing. It's, I think, a great thing for the Bay Area. I just wanted to add that in there because I heard you talk about that.
Well, I think we have, kind of covered kind of doing more events like this to showcase women in the field. I think really helps people imagine that they can do it and they can do it well. I think learning more about, I'm a little embarrassed. I've had my office in Oakland for a long time now, and I haven't been to Laney's Carpentry division. But one of the great praises I got is one of a really high-end contractor in Marin who got me involved in Laney said the best people he ever hires come out of this program, and he is a top-level builder and really respects this program immensely. So I think just getting more exposure and getting more people together and collaborating and talking about what they do is terrific. But We'd also like to open it up if people have specific questions about Laney or anything that anybody's doing up here. Yes.
If I were to enroll this semester, what class would this be for? Is it basic carpentry? Is
So Carl, I think this is one is going to be for you. So if someone enrolls this semester, what's the class going to look like? Is it going to be basic carpentry, or what is that going to look like?
There's multiple classes. He's got it. He's got it.
Well, yeah, I should just hand it over to Caitlin. Caitlin's role first. No, we're project oriented here. So a lot of times what you see here, we'll set out on a project like we did what we call the outhouse, or it's a lab house. So it was, foundation and to finish. So we're pretty much finishing up with that. So we needed a new project. So it'll be tiny house centric, but there'll be many classes overlapping. So beginning carpentry, rough framing, high performance building, what we call our core classes are all going to focus. Now, some might have a little bit more time on it than others, but essentially I think it's pretty much Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday classes. If you're in one of those main classes, you'll be working on the tiny home. Now, there's a lot of overlap in the coming semesters because you can't repeat beginning carpentry, but that means there's other classes and there's other ways. Just talk to me. There's special projects that you can continue to see it through. So we're project oriented. It's a lot of overlap, but most of our classes will be working not only on the tiny house, but we're also going to be doing a garden project.
beginning carpentry, is that the only class?
No, okay, I'll go through. So beginning carpentry, we have two sections. One meets on Wednesday, one on Friday, okay? On Tuesdays, we have a rough framing class, which focuses on rough framing, which is the beginning part of building a home, if you frame it in. So that'll be on it, so that's another class. High performance building encompasses beginning carpentry and really pretty much through till the finished stage. It's just a whole new approach to building. You want to build a house safer with safety and health in mind, energy efficient, something that really is data's coming around, basically indicating how much healthier it is to live in a high performance home. And a short anecdote is that Passive House is a very prominent high performance home. And I have a colleague that built one in Brooklyn, and there was 3 projects side by side. And one was a Passive House, 2 others were average houses. And they compared the energy bills. It was literally 10% of the energy cost to maintain this house. But even more significant, the guy that moved in, a very prominent person, said both his kids had asthma. They were 3 and 5. 6 months after they moved into this high performance house, Passive House, symptoms were gone. So we don't realize most of us are living in a funky house, whether it's where we live or what we live with. And that's what high performance building addresses. And that's a major component of this program, is understanding how that our living environs affect our health. So I'll just leave it there. But most of our classes overlap to the project we're doing. It's a short answer.
So somebody just coming in, would they take just one class?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And we have many that do that, yes. And so I think we're already on waiting list, but if you're here tonight and you're on a waiting list, see me. I will see you get in the class. There's a lot of drops between now and then. So if you're on the waiting list, even without my help, if we have to push it to 26 or 27, we will. Because part of this promotion is to create a new path for women. Because I didn't get to tell you before, and I have to be careful saying this, but essentially women are more motivated. The outcomes with our women students are much higher. So I can't say this, so I won't.
Well, I think Shay said it
But I
right
did.
earlier. We have more to prove often a
Yes.
lot of the time.
And
We work twice as hard just to compete.
And that's,
Yeah.
it's just a sad state of the world. Hopefully, we're going to start changing that because I know right away, you know, you can see it in any student's eyes who's motivated. But to Che, to Caitlin, and to Diana, who couldn't be here, you just see it in their eyes. And I'll just leave it at that. So I have, you know, we created this event, this whole push to become more aware, a program more aware, creating an awareness for women to enter our program. So I'm going to follow through. I'm not going to leave anybody out there because the outcomes are always positive. Okay, does that help? Great, thank you.
Any other questions from the audience? I mean, I think that's actually an interesting point that Carl brought up is, you know, buildings are contributing to 70% of our environmental, you know, air quality issues. I mean, and it's our building materials, it's what we specify, it's what's off-gassing, and really these healthy buildings are super critical long-term for sustainability. Any other comments from the panel?
Actually, so on that, I forgot to mention before when we were talking about sustainable housing and then solar panels and stuff, when building a small home, you have a lot more control about the materials that are being used in your home. So you have a say about like insulation, for example. If you don't want something with a bunch of chemicals, you can use something more environmentally friendly. Kind of the workaround here in the Bay Area, at least, is that you do need to be hooked up to your general utilities. But you could still use solar. You still could have, you know, another restroom that has a compost toilet if you want, but you do have to be hooked up to the city utilities. Just throwing that out there. Also, side note, forgot to mention because I don't have kids, but one of the best things that we can do to help promote women plus in carpentry and trades is to, you know, nourish if there's a general interest with our youth. If there's a young woman who's really interested in her Legos, maybe see if that turns into something, you know, nourish that. And something beautiful could happen if we don't knock women down from such a young age on that front. So just my 2 cents.
I will also add that another service that tends to be tied to women in trades or women in construction or women in renewable energy industries that people don't think about is usually when you have increased childcare services, more women will go into careers that they would not otherwise think of because generally women are burdened with or expected to have most of child caring responsibilities. So a lot of times that is a barrier for more exploration of careers. So they're very connected, and it's something that there's usually not as much connected like funding or services for, but it is something that also generally helps with increased women participation in programs. So that's something to think about.
Okay, any other great thoughts on those things, or anybody else have questions? Yes. So the question was, have the increases in cost of construction material shifted how you're doing business, and have you thinking about things differently and creatively? I think for our firm, I mean, it definitely has an impact. The lumber prices were absolutely out of this world, and they're starting to come down, but then we're seeing concrete prices surge, and we've got a lot of supply chain, and now we have a new layer of a lot of hardwood floors come out of Russia and Ukraine, so who knew that? But so, you know, I think it's going to be a constantly evolving topic, and I think to Carl's point, some systems of like 3D printing and other technologies where we could be smarter about how we're building are going to be pretty important for long-term success. I know our company has just launched a modular ADU. Because we can build in the factory, we can keep waste down and limit. We can build every day because it's inside. The quality of the people building it is better because they're not, you know, in the freezing cold or they're super hot. And so we're doing some programs like that, and always actually searching for new material methods of, ways to be sustainable. Melanie, you guys, I must have a big impact on cost for.
I was gonna say, how do I deal with that? I did a lot of crying over the winter. Yeah, the prices have been out of control. And you have to come up with creative ways to use less materials or find another material that will have the same outcome for you, but is it less cost, or you are doing like unitizing the build itself? Like we're framing full walls on the ground and then lifting them up, and that way we're not wasting lumber with bad cuts, and it's easier, it's a little faster, so it's less time that we have out there for subcontractors and stuff like that. But yeah, it's been really challenging, and just keep trying. And I keep calling my purchasing guy and say, like, help me out, man. Go take some people for lunch. Like, fine. No, we do get a lot of, Habitat gets a lot of donations, actually, which is amazing. Companies that donate to us, and that has been really helpful. And I know that our purchasing departments were working really hard to chase some of that down, so that helps offset some of those increases.
Alexandra, anything you see with the solar panels and the supply chain and cost issues for your company?
So that's more on the construction side, which is less that I deal with. I will say that, I guess one lucky thing for our clients or the people that we serve is that all of our services are free for them anyway. So they're not seeing an increase in their costs, even if we are on the construction side. But I do think we are, getting more creative with our material. I know we do have, because they're a nonprofit, there are certain relationships we have with suppliers so that we do get discounts on some of the materials, like microinverters that we use for our systems. So I know those relationships are continuing, and most of them are on like long-term leases. So I don't think we've been as affected, but I definitely know it has been harder to get a lot of material, like wood. So that's been challenging.
Yeah, lumber's been hard. So while I, work in more so buying and selling homes, with the 26,000 homes that need to be built in Oakland, sure, some of that could be fixed by rezoning for commercial. If you don't have to build from the ground up, it's going to save costs. But less square footage means less waste, less money. Small homes are a more affordable alternative than your larger McMansion, right? So these 26,000 homes that we have to build in the Bay Area, with prices as they are, if we could do them tiny, create some affordable housing in the Bay like we desperately need, I think everyone would be happy, including the city, that they're not having to spend quite so much money on these construction costs that they would otherwise be building from the ground up. And the amount of time that it gets to be delivered to you too. My dad was waiting for a garage door. It took him 3 months. So it's rough out there. Yeah?
How much is a basic building permit in Alameda? What is that? Depends on who you ask. That contributes to the high cost.
Yeah, so the question was about cost of building permits in Alameda, and I can just touch on that from the architecture point of view. The cost for an ADU permit in Oakland, like a 600 square foot ADU permit, is $15,000. So it starts to contribute. There's some cities that are doing really great stuff though, like the city of Milpitas went for some grant money. They're making all of their ADU permits free. So they're not charging anyone. Milpitas. Also, like Napa Sonoma has an ADU nonprofit that's really championing ADUs, and so they're doing plans where architects and designers submit plans and you can get them for a reduced fee, and they're already pre-approved, and so that keeps your permit cost down. San Jose has a program similarly. The city of Sacramento is getting ready to give away 3 ADU plans totally for free, so that if you want a ADU plan and you're in Sacramento, they have a studio, a 1-bedroom, and a 2-bedroom. And they're doing that completely free to encourage more housing. So I think we're going to see some of that get fixed, because right now, the worst I've heard is in East Palo Alto, their permits are like $20,000, and that is a way underserviced area that really needs the subsidized programs to get these things going. But there's some really fun nonprofits that are coming online that are helping to advance, at least on the ADU side, to help tackle some of this programs. There's also a really great grant. The Cal FHA program has an ADU grant, so homeowners can qualify for $40,000 of free money. That can pay for your architecture, permitting, engineering, any of that, what they call soft costs. So the soft costs when you're building are all of the people that are working to get you your permit, and then the hard costs are all the building materials and the construction costs to make the physical structure.
I have a question for you, moderator.
Yes, ma'am.
So East Palo Alto, you mentioned that their permit is. What could we as people just do to try and help drive these costs down? Is there anything, just voting? What do we do?
That's a great question. I think I can provide a list of people doing really great things. There's a great organization, EPA Can Do, that is in East Palo Alto, that's really pushing to do those programs. Educating city planners. I mean, I was thrilled to talk to the people in Milpitas that they are actually, went for this grant money in order to get rid of the barrier of the permit fee for people. So I think talking to your planning departments, I think, obviously legislators, but they've got so much on their plates these days. And the other thing I just wanted to talk more about is Caitlin told us the numbers that every city in California has to add X amount of housing based on how many housing. And that's a state mandate. So it comes down, it's called the RENA numbers, and that comes down from the state level. And the cities, the municipalities can face fines and lose state funding if they don't meet those numbers. And so I think one real positive thing we're seeing is that, actually the first ADU laws came down from the state in 2001, but every city was allowed to make it more and more and more complicated, and they chose to. Finally, the state stripped them of that ability in 2020. They took a lot of it away in 2018, but took almost all of it away in 2020, so everybody has the right to add these units. And so I think they've shifted from being something that the planning and building departments were afraid of, and now they're becoming a more proactive, positive way for people to add housing. And I think reaching out to more planning directors, building departments, nonprofits in different areas that, you can team up with other people. Caitlin, you can talk to Alameda and say, hey, did you know what they're doing in Milpitas? There's also a really neat organization called the Casita Coalition, which is a nonprofit that's advancing ADUs and small houses and tiny homes. And so they're doing a lot of pushing in legislature. So you can sign up for their newsletter and get behind what you're hearing about what they're doing. They're doing a lot of really interesting things. Yeah. Casita Coalition. Casita, like a little casita in your backyard, yeah. They're doing a lot of really positive, pretty exciting things. So I think we're seeing the tides change. I think the other thing to share with young women you might know is that the building technologies are going to have to change because of sustainability and what we're doing to our environment. So I think we're going to start seeing a pretty exciting time for young people in construction, because I think there's going to be a really interesting, construction has been a kind of a man-driven industry, and they kind of do it the way they did it because that's the way they did it, and that's the way we're going to do it. And so we've seen, as in my career of 20 plus years, I've seen new technologies come and nobody picks them up and nobody adapts them and they don't try to do anything with them. And I think we're finally seeing that even things that are called advanced framing, where we don't put the studs as close together because it's a more energy efficient system and we can do it in different technology. But there's a lot that needs to evolve. And so I think when people are looking at a new career or a way to get into something, this is going to be a pretty exciting time. I mean, the energy code has to shift for small houses. There's a lot of just general new technology people are trying to apply to how we build. And I think those can all be pretty exciting things to be a part of. All right, any closing thoughts, either plugs for construction, loving what you do, tiny houses? Any closing thoughts from our panelists? No?
Yeah, I just encourage people. I know that like we've talked about here, that you don't see a lot of women generally in construction or the trades. And it's unfortunate. I worked with my dad on a job site for a couple of months, and I didn't have maybe some of the negative things, and I don't know if that's maybe because my dad was there and no one wanted to give me a hard time. But he did encourage me. He said, "Work smarter, not harder." And I think that taking the time to be more thoughtful about things was really helpful in the long run, because then you don't end up redoing things. And I think that I don't want to make generalizations, but a lot of women that I know are very capable of taking that pause and thinking things through. And I think it makes for really successful tradespeople. And I really encourage you to talk about it, tell your friends, talk to your friends as kids and their cousins and everyone. Yeah, it's exciting.
All right, I'll try and bullet point my thoughts here because I'm a little active in the brain right now. All right, thinking points. Sign up at Laney, free semester. Try some classes. Why not? Hang out with me. We're building houses. It's going to be great for free. Second to that, tiny homes ADUs, it's not cut and dry, right? It's still evolving, it's still changing. Stay educated, get some information, sign up for some newsletters, and get involved. Volunteer. I'll be hitting you up. And find your happy place with Caitlin Grace, Berkshire Hathaway. Yeah, if you have questions about anything to do with housing, I'm happy to answer or look into it if I don't know the answer. So, yeah, thanks. Oh, you did one.
Okay. I will say, I think it sounds like the carpentry classes at Laney are really successful and also a really welcoming environment. I've never taken classes at Laney, but if you're interested, it sounds like this is a really great place to start. And also the skills you learn in carpentry are just so useful and applicable to a lot of different industries. Maybe you want to go into carpentry, but also it opens you up to be prepared for a lot of different types of jobs, whether you want to go into carpentry or not. You can go into roofing, you can go into solar, you can become a general contractor. Maybe you just like working with tools and you find out you want to go into engineering. Maybe you just want to do a personal project and build your own tiny home. So it just sounds like a really good way to learn a lot of different types of skills that you can apply to a lot of different areas. And so any way to learn new skills, especially skills that can be useful in different ways, is always, in my mind, a great idea.
Also, I forgot to mention, we have more than carpentry classes here. There's electricians classes. Were you going to talk on that? Oh, yeah. Here, go for it.
I just wanted to add on to what was just said. I didn't take courses to get into the industry, and I really wish I had a program like the one at Laney. I think it would have not really been a struggle to get into the industry, especially knowing so much and walking onto a job site in the field. It would have made it much easier. So.
Absolutely. We also have plumbing.
I also think, I was trained as an architect, and I went to very academic schools, but I stopped and built my first house that was for my dad with my brother, who was a boat builder. And when you put the bags on, as they say, and you swing that hammer, it certainly makes you a much more thoughtful architect. And so I think getting out in the field and getting hands-on in general with almost anything you can do in life adds a ton of value to how successful you'll be, whether you keep framing houses or you just start drawing them like I do. But the Legos that's a true thing. That's where it all started. But Carl, do you want to give us a kind of a wrap-up tonight?
Yeah, thank you. First of all, how about a hand for our panel? This is awesome. Thank you so much, everyone. I learned a ton, and to kind of pony up on a lot of things that were said, traditions die hard, and here at Laney, we are trying to dissolve the traditions because we have what we call traditional framing, which is kind of the old school, we've always done it this way. And so we have to teach it because that's what 90% of the contractors are doing or more. And so I'm slowly, trying to, I wish, every year I say, I wish I knew that, last year. Everything just builds on itself. And building is creating a home. We want to create an environment that is not only feeling like you're at home, but a home that you know is going to be comfortable, safe, and healthy. And a lot of us out there, I have students coming in when they take a class and they start learning about indoor air quality and off-gassing, to Carrie's point, and how many people have asthma and how many people don't even know what they have because they've always had it and it's normal. So we really try to dissolve those traditions, whether it's, everyone is pretty much welcomed and treated equally. There's no task specific to gender or anything. So that is the environment we've tried to establish here, and because we have students like Caitlin and unfortunately a couple others that weren't here to try to show you the environment we aspire to here, it just keeps growing. So I would really encourage you, and I'll just put it out there, if you're here tonight, even if the class is full, you'll get in, okay? Because part of my angst tonight is, as I explained to my dean, who they want to promote, Laney is free. Well, yeah, but we're full. What are we going to tell these, So we're not totally full, but a lot of our basic classes are getting there. So if you're interested, see me. Get on the waiting list. You'll be fine. And please spread the word. Like Caitlin was saying, we have many other options here. We have a construction management, and I know women getting into the trades are often, I just got a text from a colleague. She has windows installed. She said all the management people were women and all the installers were men. What's up with that? They want to work with you. You want to work with them. And I'm going, yeah, that's our job. We want to start educating employers that, hey, it doesn't matter who you are. If you're a woman, they can install. And I've seen it firsthand with the technical skills. They come, whomever comes in, starts swinging a hammer, and then a year later, you're like, oh my goodness, it's really a joy to work here. And so a lot of that is just having the environment that Oakland provides. So I just wanted to thank everybody again, and spread the word. We really enjoyed having you here, and we're going to start making this a regular kind of event once a semester, because I think there's many people, as some of the panelists have mentioned, that never thought they could do this, right? Never heard about Laney. It blows me away because we try our best, but obviously these kind of events, I think, will start getting the word out. So please spread the word, and thanks again.